So, I call to order the Gladstone City Council meeting for August 8th, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. Hi everyone, and it is Happiness Happens Day. What a great day for that. So we're going to have a happy meeting, hopefully. Tonight on our consent agenda, we have approval of the July 25th regular meeting minutes, approval of the monthly financial reports, approval of the July check register and bank balances, legal costs on projects, department head monthly reports for July of 2017. The items on our regular agenda are the Civic Buildings Master Plan, exemption from the traditional bidding process, an IGA agreement between the Gladstone School District and the City of Gladstone, City of Gladstone social media policy, and City Council liaison appointments for city committees, boards, and commissions. We will then recess to the Urban Renewal Agency meeting to discuss a minor plan amendment to the Urban Renewal Plan. Then we will reconvene to the regular City Council meeting, and then we do have 2 executive sessions scheduled after that. So that's where we stand on the agenda. So Tammy, could you please call the roll?
Councilor Milch.
Here.
Councilor Neese. Present. Councilor Tracy.
Present.
Councilor Reisner.
Here.
Councilor McMahon.
Here.
Councilor Mercero.
Here.
Mayor Stemple.
Here. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any agenda additions or corrections?
Madam Mayor, I would like to add under business from the council, noticing of a planning commission, audit committee vacancy, and traffic safety committee vacancy discussion.
Okay.
So vacancies on city committees.
Vacancy on city committees. All right, and I would like to make one change, if it's all right with all of you. Since we have the school district representatives here, could we move that to the first item on the regular agenda so that they don't have to sit here through the whole meeting? Is that all right with you guys? Is that all right with the school people? Okay. So, first is business from the audience. And as I said earlier, when you submit the card, please state if there's an agenda item that you want to speak on. And I think we're pretty full on the number of cards. And then we'll call you forward at the appropriate time. So before we proceed, actually, no, I'm going to stop there. Go ahead. Your business from the audience.
Greg Alexander.
I really want this.
Greg Alexander, Gladstone. I first off want to say congratulations to Michael and Matt for making the council. And then I've got to also be the guy that says it because I know it, right? I was a little disturbed afterwards to be in a conversation with Linda and a few other people where she said that she had been contacted by Patrick and Tom and was asked to vote a certain way. Now, we had a recall. We got rid of a couple of the counselors, and we wanted that to stop. All the meetings were going just fine and good. Everyone was happy. They were enjoyable. And then to find out pressure from that, and then to find out that she also gave another counselor a citizen's phone number to call to back up her play. This is what we're trying to get rid of in this city. This is what the citizens don't want or need. And you would think when there's 7, a quorum was 4. I took a picture to prove, that 4 of you guys met at other times. But when there's only 5 members, a quorum is 3. So if you and Tom and Linda and everybody got together, well, that's another quorum to make a decision. That's behind closed doors. That's what the citizens don't want. And that's all I want to say. We're trying to make it better and easier and happier and get more people involved and more people to come. And that kind of stuff isn't going to fly anymore, I hope. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Against
you guys are both qualified and intelligent and everything. I just, go away.
Thank you very much. Next.
Mindy Garlington.
Hi, I'm Mindy Garlington, Friends of Gladstone Nature Park. Not sure if you knew this, we're having an eclipse.
Yep.
What day is that, Mindy?
Monday, August 21st.
At what time?
Well, here's what we're doing. We're having coffee and donuts at the nature park. And we're going to have some sunglasses, but if you've got your own, bring your own. But we'd love to have everybody up there. Put your name tag on, meet a neighbor, join in the fun. That's all that we ask, and we'll supply the coffee and donuts. 9 o'clock, 9 to 11, or whatever time everybody leaves. I mean, y'all can hang around as long as you want. So.
Yeah. Stay off the roads. Stay off the roads.
Yeah. Sean, handing these out.
Thank you.
I think everybody should come. It'll be a fun time. Who doesn't like a donut?
I'll be in Smith Rock, but
I'll be
I'll try and get back by the next day.
Hang it on your fridge if you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
get out of town. I have more if anybody would like to come up to the Gladstone Nature Park. Thanks for letting me
Mindy.
grandstand from them.
And thank you for doing this. Next.
Lanny Saunders.
Lanny Saunders, 675 Barbary Place, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Gladstone Public Library Foundation tonight. I just want to express thanks to a number of people. First, Linda Cosgrove and her friend Nancy did a garage sale for us several weeks ago. She started collecting things like 3 months before the garage sale. Her garage was full, her patio was full, her dining room was full, her front porch was full. Now, she says she's never doing it again, but she spent months pricing things and collecting things, and all we did was show up and help set things out and collect money. So we really want to thank her and her friend Nancy. And we just finished our annual book sale, and it was another big success, and we didn't do it by ourselves. We had lots of help. First of all, the Rotary Club, which does a wonderful job with the festival, and they include us on their schedule even though we are not an official part of the events, and we really appreciate their doing that. The City Works crew, who unloaded box after box after box of books, and I do mean box after box, and they were wonderful about it, and all we do for them is give them a couple of donuts. They're really nice about it. The crew at John Wetton is wonderful. They go out of their way to be welcoming. They help us get whatever we need, put tables down, do everything they can, and especially their head custodian, Tyler, who was new this year, and we kind of had to break him in a little bit, but he was great. We have a terrific group of volunteers. Some of them show up year after year after year just so they can buy used books at half price, and because they're great citizens. We also had some new people this year. We had the Kraxberger Robotics Club that came, and it's wonderful to see all these people. We have customers that show up every single year, and some of these people we see once a year, so it's like seeing old friends, but they show up every year just so they could buy a bag of books for $6. And a special thank you to our friend Greg Alexander. He really stepped up this year. We were having a really hard time finding a place to store our books. He stored the books for us for several months. He brought them to the John Wetton. We couldn't have done it without him this year, so we really appreciate everything he did. And thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Patrick Mathis.
This isn't my strong suit, addressing people in front of an audience. Bear with me. My name is Patrick Mathis. I've lived on West Berkeley Street for roughly 16 years. Like many people in this city, I was shocked at the behavior of a few sitting council members during the recent appointment process after the recall of Councilors Sickman and Johnson. The sitting council members agreed to a process which would serve as guidance in appointing new council members for vacated positions. This business of conducting interviews and reviewing the applications of interested parties was to be commenced by 2 citizens, 2 city employees, and 2 sitting council members. These 6 people were to cast a vote as to who they deemed the most qualified and the best fit for the vacated council positions. As we all know, votes were cast in majority of 5 for Mr. Hernandez, 4 for Mr. Councilor Milch. This process was to ensure the engagement of the citizens of Gladstone in the process, and it bears repeating that it was agreed to by all council members at the time of the process being laid out. Not only did this show good faith by the council, but provided a transparent process. At the time of the actual appointment, 3 councilors, Mrs. Neese, Mr. McMahon, and Mr. Mesereau, decided to ignore the recommendation of the panel for Mr. Hernandez and instead seated Councilor Milch and Councilor Tracy. This was an affront to the citizens of Gladstone and to the open, transparent process that was sought by convening a recommendation panel. Our city government is only granted the power to exist and to conduct business by and on the behalf of the citizens, and we were ignored. The relationship between the community and our city council has been tarnished. It is because of the above shameful actions and many similar activities that I am proposing we begin to put power back into the hands of the people where it belongs. Public service means serving the public, not the public serving the government. This will be quite an undertaking, but I have one proposal to start with that I believe will not only make our government more transparent, but will allow the people to decide who speaks for them. I urgently propose we amend our city charter in regards to the filling of vacant council positions. Instead of having positions filled through appointment by remaining councilors, they would be filled by way of a special election or general election, whichever comes first. That allows every citizen to make an informed decision on who represents them. The new councilor would serve out the remainder of the term of the vacated position until the following general election. To be determined in discussion with city administrator and city attorney would be the time frames around when a special election would need to be called, or if a position waits until a general election. Also, there should be discussion around a pro tempore in case of emergency business and what defines an emergency in a situation that no majority vote can be reached. I want to thank the council for their time and efforts on this matter. I truly believe this is a needed change to how we do business and will be an incredible good faith gesture to restore trust in our government. Thank you.
Do you have a copy of that you can give to Tammy or Jackie?
She's got it.
Okay, you're good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, next.
Bill Osborne.
Bill Osborne, 7160 Monteverde. First, I wanted to say we have solve cleanup coming up on the 19th from 10 a.m. to 2. We'll be staging up on the bridge right there at Cross Park where we usually do. So
You said 10 a.m. to 2?
10 a.m. to 2, yes. We also will have one on September 23rd, which is the big river and beach cleanup through Solve. So again, invite everybody out there, your friends or neighbors. We're always looking for as much help as we can get. Hopefully this day will be cooler than the last couple days. 100 degrees does not work well, and the upper 90s doesn't work that well either. So I also like to thank the foundation. They put some of our Historical Society books up for sale. We sold 4 of them at their book sale, so that helped the Historical Society. And I want to thank everybody who helped out with the community festival. It was a lot of fun. Myself and my daughter and my older daughter went down there and enjoyed most of the activities. So again, thanks to everybody on that. A couple people touched on some things here about some meeting processes and appointments and stuff. I think the one thing to the new counselors, Counselor Milch and Tracy, is that you know, as much as people are questioning this, it's questioning the process. They're not questioning you two or your qualifications. You know, so it's, as much as there's been a lot of talk about this, hopefully you guys don't feel that people are saying you're not qualified or anything. It's just people that were questioning the process that went on and looking to have something a little bit easier for the future ones. I'd also like to point out if there were phone calls going on, which apparently, from what I understand there was, where 3 counselors of a council of 5 were talking. Unless David corrects me, I believe that constitutes a quorum, and even through the phone, in a cumulative fashion like that, constitutes an illegal meeting. So if we're going to be moving forward and moving out of the problems we had in the past, things like that can't take place. We need to be on the level, and we need to be transparent about things. And then you'll probably hear less from me, because most of the time, as you know, when I get up here, it's over something not positive, and I'd like to come up and say more positive things. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Bill. And thank you for all the solve work that you do constantly.
So the 23rd is a Wednesday, is that correct, for the one, or is it September 23rd you meant?
September 23rd.
Thank you.
Last one.
All right.
Bob Everett.
The best for last.
You look tired.
I'm at it. Yeah, I'm recuperating still. Hi, Bob Everett, 18235 Stonewood Drive and 325 Portland Avenue, and I'd like to thank Lanny for also mentioning Rotary and our advertisement of that. We are extremely happy that we can do that for any organization, excuse me, that is having an event, and put that on our website and also with the community festival website then too, because we feel that is, you know, I felt this right from the time that I've sort of become involved, that that's what's the most important thing, is the community with that we are in, and it's the reason I named it. Well, Jal and I sort of picked that name is because community is very important. I'm not going to take full credit for that, that's for sure. But I also want to thank everyone, all the residents of Gladstone who came out. I really treasure the committee. We have some wonderful people on the committee. I mean, Tracy and Teresa who do the parade, all the people that work in the park, all the people that organize everything. Linda helps so much in fundraising and just her expertise and all the different areas we had. I love working with the city. I really truly do. They're always cooperative. The people behind the scenes have put so much into it. You know, whether it was Sergeant Bell, the police department, Rex from Public Works. I mean, my gosh, I had to call Rex to get a key so we could make sure we could get toilet paper for the bathrooms, and he came down and because he gave me the wrong key, so it wasn't relatively his fault, but because that is a tragedy, there's no doubt about it. But we had so much fun. All of us on the committee and all of us from Rotary had so much fun, and I had a blast, even though there were a few moments where I was wondering why the heck I was doing this, but it was long days. But thank you so much, and for everyone, and I hope you all had a good time. I'm looking forward to next year, and I still want to do it. So thank you all, and I hope Linda mentions the Pillar of Peace a little bit. I was going to mention that. That was something that Rotary did there, and I hope everybody takes a moment to take a look at it, because it really means something special.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very, very much. Anybody else? That's it. All right. So, before we proceed with the regular agenda, I would like to say a few words regarding the City Council. And most of you sitting out there have heard this before, but I feel it's very important that everyone understands our limitations. As we discuss and consider matters, there are laws and rules we have to use as the basis of our decisions. These start at the federal and state level, then filter down to our city's comprehensive plan, city charter, codes, and ordinances. And we do not have the luxury of randomly making decisions, but instead we have to be consistent and take a path that's defensible. There are many times when we may have strong personal feelings relating to a topic, but we need to set those aside and limit ourselves to the framework our city documents provide. My goal is to keep this meeting respectful, engaging, and on task, and hope that you all will help us do that. Thank you. So the first item is the consent agenda. Any discussion?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion was made by Councilor Reisner, seconded by Councilor McMahon. Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passed. Is there any correspondence?
I have none.
Tammy?
No.
Nothing? All right. So we're going to move on to the regular agenda, and we're moving number 8 to position number 6, which is the intergovernmental agreement between the Gladstone School District and the City of Gladstone. Staff?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to ask our Senior Center Manager, Colin Black to come up, and he's going to walk you through the staff report. I will say that it's been a pleasure working with the school district. I think we're very fortunate to have them in Gladstone, and I look forward to our improved relationship through this partnership. And it really is a good program that really has not been formalized in the past. I talked to you about this when I did my project updates a couple months ago, and now we're at a point where if the city council approves this evening, then the school district will approve it and we'll get it fully executed. So with that, I will have Mr. Black go through the staff report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Any questions on the staff report I can answer? Or anybody? Concerns? Questions about it?
The term of agreement, would you
Term of agreement?
clarify for that?
Yes, I can clarify that to mean actually July of 17 through July or June of 18.
Thank you.
Exactly. When I wrote this agreement, my whole intention was to recognize the hard work that the Gladstone School District has done in their partnership for that, while recognizing that both the city and the school district are facing new fiscal challenges in the near future, funding resources, appropriations, etc. But I think this is a very fair thing. This is not a new revenue source stream for the senior center. This is just a way for us to recoup some of the cost of providing these excellent programs, which they completely manage. All we do is host. So I want to make that completely clear. They do 100% of the work in this. So I just want to make sure that the council is recognizing that I am recognizing this in their efforts in that. So I would like that to be on the record.
Okay. Questions for Colin?
Oh, I know, more of a question / statement.
Mm-hmm.
So reading through this, as I was reading through it, I was seeing what I know of the program,
Mm-hmm.
in essence, being put on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong in that regard? I mean, it seems like what as Beth was mentioning is what in essence we did was we took what we're doing and we just formalized it.
Yes, we are formalizing it, and there has never been a true formalized agreement.
Right.
They have never paid for services such as utilizing our rental space and
Mm-hmm.
supplies at the senior center, and this formalizes that process moving forward, which is part of the strategic goals of the city council.
Thank you.
You stated in here that space programs at a discounted rate of 25%.
So they would be paying 25% of the total per hour rate with no minimum.
So what would be the per hour rate?
$10 per hour per class.
Okay, per class.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're looking currently at the next schedule, which would be the fall term.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking approximately $2,000.
That will bring in $2,000 a month?
No, total for the term.
Total
for their classes.
Just for that term?
Yes,
okay.
Just for that term. And each term varies on the amount of classes.
Okay.
So that's not going to be a consistent number. It could be lower or it could be higher.
Okay.
And you were getting no compensation
Correct.
before.
So for all the classes that were held after hours, the city was paying out of pocket for the monitor. Same with the weekend classes. Now this will allow us to recoup some of that cost.
Okay.
At $10 an hour, that's actually less than the current minimum wage, but that allows us just to recoup.
And will you have like a separate line item for this money? I mean, what's with you collecting it, what's it going to be designated to?
To the general fund of the senior center.
Okay, all right.
I believe that's what Callan and I had discussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Under section 13 on 8-5, since we have our city attorney here, we do think we have a Scrivener's error that needs corrected where it says city's waiver of consequential damages. It says that the city agrees that neither GSD nor any of its officers, etc., shall be held liable, and I think we need to have that mutual to go both ways, so we need to add some language in there, and we will fix that.
Okay. All right, any more questions for Colin? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, I move that we authorize, that we authorize the mayor, or
Typically, it would be typically an IGA the mayor would sign, but you can have Jackie sign it too.
well, yeah, the mayor execute an IGA with the Gladstone School District number 115, commencing July 1st, 2017.
I'll second it.
With that change to 13.
With the change on 13.
Okay. You still seconded?
Yeah, I'll still second it with that
Okay.
amendment.
Motion was made by Counselor Reisner and seconded by Counselor Neese. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Much.
Thank you. All right, the next public hearing and action item is number 7, exemption from the traditional bidding. Excuse me, I passed the next one because I'm moving things around up here.
6.
Next item on our agenda is the Civic Buildings Master Plan.
Okay. Mayor and Council, I'm about to tell you why it's an exceptionally good time to be an elected official, because staff is very excited about these next 2 items that we have on the agenda, and that's in regards to the future of our new City Hall and our new Police Department. And I think that everybody in this room knows that these buildings have been vetted extensively for years. And what I tried to do in the staff report is to prepare you a chronological timeline, especially for our new counselors, so that we can talk about what's the policy decision that needs to be made this evening. And so very briefly, what I would like to do, if you refer to your staff report, is we're going to talk about the library, but we're going to talk about the library in a way that on how it fits in the bigger picture, and it doesn't have to do with any decisions that we're making about the new library. But back in 2014, the voters approved a measure authorizing the city to construct a new library that had to be built on Portland Avenue, and there was a library committee that looked at various sites down Portland Avenue and scoped those out and determined that this location right here would be the best site to coexist a city hall and new library. So in 2015, we also had a separate civic buildings committee, and they looked at including the police department on Portland Avenue and where those various locations could be. That committee recommended to council that the city hall library be here, the new police department be relocated down towards public works. At that time, we did not have the Portland Avenue property, which I'll show you here. So with that in mind, then in November 2015, the voters approved a measure authorizing the city to construct and incur debt to finance a new city hall and police department. So we now have voter approval for the new library, the new city hall, and the new police department. What you have in your packet is a copy of Resolution 1069, and that's a resolution authorizing staff to begin a project to construct a library city hall on 525 Portland Avenue and a plan for a new police station. That has been set in resolution, and so what we're going to be proposing to you today is to decouple the city hall from the library to be located here. And if the city council decides to do that, then we'd be asking you to repeal that resolution and adopt a new resolution for us to move forward. So in 2016, the city completed the purchase of our property at 18505 Portland Avenue, and that is where the new police station is to be built, and it's right next door to Public Works. We paid approximately $907,000 in December to get that property. I think all of you remember that there was some controversy, not regarding the property owners, but the business owners that were located on that property, and the city went through a process of negotiations with with many of the business owners, and I have 6 business owners here. So what the council did was they appointed former Councilor Kim Sickman, current Councilor Pat McMahon, and former City Administrator Swanson to negotiate with the business owners under the advisement of the City Attorney, and then we had various executive sessions to make sure that the full council was aware of where we were monetarily with the negotiating terms. After the recall and Mr. Swanson's resignation, Mayor Stemple and myself were then appointed as replacements and continued to work with Councilor Pat McMahon. And as I said, we had several executive sessions to assure that we were within our spending authority. And what I want to make clear here is that there was no one-on-one negotiations with the business owners. This was all done with a group of elected officials under the advisement of our city attorney, and we worked collectively in executive session to come to those resolutions. And I'm happy to say that everybody is off-site and those resolutions came to fruition.
I'd like to make one quick correction. I was actually involved in the beginning of that process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So after we acquired the property, this was an excellent opportunity for our fire department to go burn it down. And it actually was a fun day, and as you can see, we have our future firefighters in their lawn chairs sitting there watching. So we got to do some new training, we kept the momentum going, and then we started working on the debris cleanup. We actually were able to retain a local contractor, Timberline Development, to help us with the cleanup work. And I'm very pleased that we were able to keep that work local here. And so today, this is what the property looks like. So we have a vacant piece of land, and we are ready to build a police department. And so what we want to ask, and I know there's a smiling police chief back there too. I can feel it. So since the resolution was put into place, we have gone through inordinate transitions with council administration, and we're going on year 3 now where we have funding but no action. And I think it's time, and I think all of you agree that it's time for us to do what the voters told us to do. But having said that, this is also an opportunity for us to look at, do we want to move City Hall down there on location? So we actually hired McKinsey Group, and I have Andrew and Scott here, that when I'm done here they can come up and answer questions. And McKinsey Group has been involved with our civic buildings projects for many years, I would say over 12. They actually did a feasibility study before the one that they did now on what the program's needs are of a future City Hall police department should we leave it here. I put a copy of the scope of work that they did for us in your packet, and you have that, and basically what you'll find is that Public Works now is also put into one of these options. And I think that Public Works Director Jim Wynot has been very cooperative with this team effort to try to come to a recommendation, and it really is not going to benefit him in the decision that's made this evening. The realities are we need to do something with our Public Works site. He is in a temporary building right now. It's a conditional use. The permit will expire in 1.5 years. So I think what we really are trying to say here today with Public Works is that even though it may not be included in this master plan option, we need to recognize that within the next 5 years we need to make that a priority, and how we're looking at funding options, potential new sites of maybe where Public Works will want to be in the future. But I would like to thank Jim, because it's difficult recognizing the deplorable working conditions that they have in their buildings as well. But really what we're trying to focus on is what makes sense for us right now. And we realize that we need to build some trust with the community, and building the police department and potentially the city hall is going to be the start to that. So in your packet you have options, and we want to emphasize to you and the members of the public that these are just conceptual drawings that we placed on property to show you, one, that we can fit our future needs square footage wise for both the city hall and the police department. So option A that you're seeing up there is just if we did a police and court combination on site of the new Portland Avenue property, and then the other piece is the existing public works site there. That's option A. Option B shows you if we do a 13,000 square foot police department and about a 6,100 square foot city hall facility that would house the court system. So basically what you have is you have a police department and you have court and you have city hall staff. I also would ask that you please don't get too hung up on the square footages, because that is all going to be vetted through the process when we go out to bid, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity to talk about what's the building going to look like, which way should it fit, should we have 2 stories instead of 1, and really what we're saying to you is that we think it's doable to put City Hall down there with the police department. You give us our policy direction and we will come back to you with what the options are. Moving City Hall to the police department side makes sense for a lot of reasons. One, as you're aware, we're in current litigation with the county regarding our library situation, and I firmly believe that by decoupling the library from the City Hall allows us to focus on building a standalone library here in the future, and that we can move the City Hall down to the police department. It provides efficiencies for our services. We're very small staffed. We cross-train with the services we provide, and by having us all together on that site, I think is going to be a better benefit to the citizens in the community. And then the last big benefit, I think, of moving it down there is that we would not have to relocate permanently for a couple or temporarily for a couple of years our City Hall services. If we build it here, we will have to relocate and lease a space for a couple of years while the City Hall and the library project are built here. So it makes sense from a fiduciary sense and an efficiencies for us to consider moving the City Hall down to the site with Portland Avenue. I will show you option C, and this is our dream. This is what we think makes best sense for that piece of property, and if you think about it, it does, because you can have public works in the back of the property, less congestion, less noise, and we would be able to front the City Hall and the police department on Portland Avenue. There's still potential to site both of those on Portland Avenue, but we might have to go higher instead of longer. But like I said, the city has not passed any financial package in relation to the public works facility, and so we have conceded on option C. Quite frankly, we are ready as a city to move forward with option A or B. Our recommendation is that you move the location of the City Hall down to the Portland Avenue site, allow us to work on both of those civic buildings together, and then we could focus on building a new library on this site here. So, Andrew, Scott, is there anything you wanted to add regarding?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. So I will open it up for questions. Discussion.
I've been waiting 3 years to do this. I'm all for it. I think it's time that we, as conversations that I've had, it's time that we take care of the city employees in particular that work here. The police department's here 24 hours a day. City staff is here 8 hours a day, more like 10 hours a day, and then on council nights you and Tammy are here even extra time. So I think this is fantastic. It's time to do it. I think it's good that though I wanted the library here with the City Hall on the 3rd floor, that's a reach that I'm not going to get, and I am ready to say let's move forward, build the police station with the City Hall down at That Works, and see if we can't figure out a way to get a library here.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
Well, can I continue?
You didn't say anything, so I thought we were
well,
done.
I was... No, so I agree with Pat. I have a lot of reservations of moving City Hall from here. As the library patrons, that a city without a library, is like, say, a bus stop. But it's also, a library is a heart. But also the other half of that heart is City Hall. And think of Happy Valley and West Lynn have their not libraries, but their city halls are kind of off out of the way. But I've been talking with some of our residents that live down on that into town, and to my shock, they think that's a good idea. I mean, they love the idea that police department's going to be there. I mean, that was a no-brainer. I mean, we had decided that last year, but it's just been the last couple of months or so that we've been talking about decoupling, as you mentioned, the library and City Hall, and putting City Hall with the police department. And as much as I think the City Hall should stay here, it just makes sense to move it. So, well, sorry. So, I think economically, and also I think it's going to help with future development in the north part of town along Portland Avenue. Sherwood, they put their police department, moved it away from the City Hall, and this is back before the current City Hall library was built in an area that had a rundown bar and some other things. And so since then, that area has rebuilt and is more vital. So I'm on board. Now that I slowed down your emotion.
So glad to hear you say that. Yes, I have to agree. I think it's a great opportunity for us and for the residents, but we can now really focus on the library and keeping that separate from City Hall and giving the library the space that they need and want, and I think it's economical as well to go down there at that end, and I think it's a great opportunity for Gladstone and a positive to move forward.
I'll say too, I'm happy to see it at that end of town. It puts it in close proximity to the Gladstone Center for Children and Families and the Gladstone High School, which are two other very important civic buildings in this community. Even though they're not directly connected to their city, they're with the school district, which we just created an IGA with. But I think to see all the positive things that we do as a community at one end of Portland Avenue is going to be a very positive thing. I do have one question about the repeal of Resolution 1069. I know it decouples the library from the City Hall, but when you repeal a resolution, don't you essentially repeal all of it so that, and the reason I'm asking this is it specifically uses this address as the address of the new library, and if circumstances were to come about that another address, another piece of property along Portland Avenue were to become available, for example, for some kind of a private-public partnership or a donation of land or anything else that could put the library at any other location, are we committed to that specific street address when we repeal this prior resolution?
I think if that was the case, you would just be again repealing a resolution, but you can certainly just remove the address from this if you want to do that. this evening. We could take a look to see how that wording could work.
I think the only mention of the address is in reference to the resolution that would be repealed.
That's correct. So certainly, Madam Mayor, if you don't want to refer to the 525 piece of that in the resolution, we could amend that out. Okay. Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve option B, which is make a motion to approve resolution number 1114, a resolution repealing resolution number 1069 and authorizing staff to begin a project to design and construct a city hall and police station at 18505 Portland Avenue. I'll second the motion.
Motion was made by Councilor McMahon and seconded by Councilor Milch. Any further discussion?
I made a list of pros and cons, and of them, there was more pros than cons, and I'm all in favor of it. But the one thing that does still bother me a bit, which we would probably have to go no matter what option we did, the city hall staying here while the city hall is being built and the police station being built. If the library in fact does go here, then in theory, if the buildings are built in 2 years, okay, then we can't start on the library other than engineering for 2 years. And I think we ought to consider some other thoughts about, gee whiz, if we get the library going, the concept, is there another option rather than the library being here, or the city hall being here?
Yeah, I think part of that's going to be addressed in the next agenda item. Any further discussion?
I'm all for it.
All right. We like that. Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. All right. Yay. Okay. Chapter 2. Okay. Next item, exemption from the traditional bidding process. Staff. Okay, so in order for the city to be exempt from the traditional competitive bidding process, we had to list some findings on reasons why we should be allowed to do that. And I think, as all of you are aware, what happens with public procurement processes is that when cities go out to bid, they're obligated to take the low bid. And that works sometimes, but a lot of times it doesn't. And what you can get is work that's not done so professionally, and it ends up being not cost effective. Gladstone is making a big financial commitment. It's very rare that cities do one civic building, but we're going to be doing 2. And so we are able to have findings in support of an exemption to allow us to do what's called a progressive design build, which means that we would be going out for requests for qualifications instead of selecting a firm based on what they're bidding us. And I believe that if we put out a request for qualifications on a progressive design build, that we're able to then score those proposals based on qualified contractors that have a history of working with qualified architects. So right away what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to create your team of the contractor, the architects, working with the owner, the city, on building both of these buildings to efficiencies, and it's more cost effective. So what I'm going to have David do is to go over the findings pursuant to ORS 279C 335 subsection 2
that allows the city to be exempt from traditional bidding process should the city council approve that.
David?
Are there any questions to this point? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, so one thing procedurally, that you are having a hearing on this. Oregon law requires the hearing, so once I'm done yammering away, you'll want to invite anybody that wants to testify. And along those lines, procedurally, we gave some notice as required by Oregon law, announcing the fact that we were having this hearing. So what as Jackie said, basically Oregon is a least cost state in terms of constructing public improvements, and the default is, and unless you have an exemption like this in place, you have to go through a design, bid, build process, which, I think gets a worse rap than it really deserves, but it often can be, especially for big kind of important quote-unquote buildings such as these, maybe not the best way to deliver a project. So the findings, what Oregon law says is that you need to be able to find basically two things. One is that the exemption is not going to encourage favoritism or diminish competition, and the fact that we'll be doing an open RFQ, RFP process to get that design builder, the consultant with the design and the construction responsibility, means that there will be competition. It won't be based solely on the lowest responsible bid, but there would be a process. It's not like we're going to be in a back room saying we want you to come on board. It'll be a very transparent, driven by criteria that we'll develop. I assume McKenzie would probably help develop that as well. So the second finding that we need to be able to make is that it will result in substantial cost savings or other benefits to the agency. And there's enough studies out there that tend to show, when done correctly, and you've got somebody that can manage the project well, that these what they call alternative contracting processes tend to save a decent amount of money. They just basically, not to get too deep in the weeds on this, but the way they're structured, they tend to discourage a lot of claims. A lot of requests for change orders, and what's really elegant about design build is that you have instead of having somebody that is responsible for the design and then a contractor that's responsible for building according to that design. The fact that there's no contractual relationship between those two in the traditional sense makes it ripe for these types of claims. What really comes up is basically if there's a problem, the contractor blames it on the design, and the design professional blames it on the contractor. And the owner's kind of stuck in the middle and doesn't get the project they want, but meanwhile they're paying for all this. So what this will do is combine that responsibility to design it and build it into one entity. And therefore, if there's a design problem, it's that entity that owns it and eats it, not the owner. So the other bit about the finding with respect to resulting in cost savings or other benefits is that in lieu of that, and we made this point in the findings themselves, if it's a pilot project, if it's not something that the city has done before, and to my knowledge, to Jackie's knowledge, I've certainly got a few years on her in terms of knowledge of what the city's done. Kind of went through some files of ours, and I know you've never done a design build project before. So that's a nice feature of the law as well, that it basically acknowledges that, hey, as these processes become more common, it gives folks like Gladstone that haven't used that process before an opportunity to try it and determine whether, in fact, the cost savings that are expected are actually realized. So there's categories of information here. I'm happy to take any questions you might have. These are all laid out in state statute, and most are applicable, some aren't. So we went through and sort of analyzed them to come to the conclusion that, yes, it makes sense to exempt this contract.
Questions? I'm sure there'll be plenty.
I have one.
Yes.
you mentioned the advantage of it being a pilot project to us. If we do a pilot project on the construction of the City Hall and Police Station, will that preclude us from considering the library also as a pilot project, or do you get one?
Yeah, probably, because it really is tied to, I think all three would be buildings, and it's really tied to the particular type of what people in construction contracting call and designing delivery method, how you build it. So we wouldn't probably be able to say if you approve tonight, use the design build method again, but there are other ones out there as well. CMGC is another acronym that gets thrown around a lot, and it has a lot of features that are similar. That would be a possibility, because I don't think you've ever used that either. It's been a long time since you've built a building. So
one thing you didn't mention was the expedited time frame for the delivery using this method.
Yeah.
It's shortened to what? I heard 16 months.
It could 16 to 18 months versus 2.5 to 3 years. So it really does try to streamline the process and allow for efficiencies. And the other attractant to this is that we are not deep in staff, and through the traditional bidding process, you as a city, we would recommend that you hire a separate project manager, because Public Works Director, myself, the police chief, we cannot project manage this. By bringing in a contractor in the progressive design build, they are project managing it, and then just working with myself and the department heads that need to know about that. And that's a really big feature, because to hire a project manager eats away from the cost of the project as well.
Would we go out to bid on the project manager, or would we look for somebody local here in our community?
If you do the traditional bidding process, if you do that instead of this, then you will have to go out for an RFP to get a project manager.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question for Councilor Milch. So, David, he talked about pilot project, but I read that to mean that if it works for us, that we can use that same process again. Is that not correct? If we find that it is a cost savings to the city, is there any reason that we could not do this same process for the library?
No reason at all. You just wouldn't be able to call it a pilot project.
But we would have shown, but we would have shown a cost savings, and so
absolutely, yeah, and that's it. So from the lawyer guy's mind, it's nice to have this sort of belt and suspenders approach, because there have been cases, not so much in the design build realm, but there were a lot of significant changes were made to the law a couple of years ago, because so many communities were rushing out and doing mostly that other acronym I referred to, CMGC, that got a number of contracting associations upset. And the long and the short of it was they changed the law to basically make it a bit harder to do CMGC. And so there's always the feeling that there's a fairly decent magnifying glass put on this process, and so when you have that ability to say, hey, it's the first time we've done it, you've got a little more flexibility there with respect to your legal authority to do it. But you're absolutely right, Counselor. If it came down to the library and that was the best method to do it, then we would just say, here's why.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I have one comment. Maybe, Jackie, if you can, could you elaborate a little bit on the RFQ portion of this process? Because at first you said RFQ process, and then David, I think, referred to RFQ or RFP, so that the folks here in the room understand what that means exactly.
Yes, so an RFP or Q is request for qualifications, and so basically what the city is doing is we're going to put out a notice proposal to qualified contractors, and we're going to have specific criteria relating to your experience on projects such as this, that then they put together their material to present to us. They're selling themselves, saying this is why we think we'd be the best fit for your project. And so what's different about that is a request for proposals is a contractor saying, oh, we'll build that for $2 million. Well, really, you guys, us, are the ones that are choosing somebody based on their qualifications. And so that's what RFQ represents.
Thank you.
All right. So if we have no more questions for staff, we'll open it up for public
Just
comment.
testimony, that's all it is.
Public
really is.
testimony. Is there
Yep.
anyone in the audience that would like to come up and speak? Yes. Just your name and what city you live in.
Dennis McCurdy, and I live
in
Gladstone. I have fortunately had the ability to work at design-build projects I've been in the trades for 45 years, but I did design-build projects for over 20 for all of the major hospitals in the area, and I'm talking about in Southwest Washington and in Portland area. And these were huge projects, and I've worked occasionally with McKinsey Group, but I don't know a lot about them. I can tell you this. There are several things, the advantages of design-build. All of the RFPs and RFQs, all those processes, that's well within you can control everything from that point on, because you're going to be in control of the project, which is extremely critical in design-build. But in the design-build process, a lot of things that are overlooked or not considered are the facts that most of these projects have huge mechanical and electrical components to them. There are huge ticket items involved in a lot of those, and the switchgear and the fan units and the big chillers and coolers and cooling towers, whatever they happen to be. By doing a design-build process, the people that come to you responding to the RFQs can address those items for you, and by buying them in advance or agreeing to purchase them in advance, they get huge discounts, or the possibility exists that they can get huge discounts. As far as protecting yourself goes, you have two ways of doing that. Obviously, bonding the project, which is no-brainer, protects you. But more importantly, these projects also come with a retention, and typically it's about 10%. So that money is held back if something doesn't work out, and believe me, all the contractors and the engineers and the architects understand when you're sitting on their money, and they don't get it until you release it. It's a huge hammer to have. Also, I believe that I'm sure when the contract's done, I'm sure David looks at it, personal liabilities from people who work on the projects, all of that is all covered, and you might want to look at the hold harmless clauses. That is really huge, because Hoffman Construction invented that so that they couldn't get sued, and it can work for you. So that's all I had. It's a very good process, and I highly recommend that you look into doing it or actually proceed with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
No. Anyone else? All right, so we need to close the public testimony.
Yeah, that's fine. Doesn't have to be formal, just that for the record is great.
Okay, so we'll close the public testimony, and we'll move on to exemption from the traditional bidding process. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd love to make a motion to approve Resolution 1115, a resolution exempting a public improvement contract from the traditional bidding in accordance with ORS. And so there's two different numbers that I'm seeing on this other page. It was 279C335, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I will go with ORS 279C335 subsection 2 and authorize staff to solicit request for qualifications, RFQ.
I second that.
Was made by Councilor McMahon and seconded by Councilor Mercero. Do we have any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Whew, we're gonna move forward. All right. The next item on our agenda is unless I've messed this one up, City of Gladstone social media policy. Staff?
Hey. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, I'm going to have our Senior Center Manager, Colin Black, come up. Colin has been assigned our PIO, Public Information Officer, Social Media Analyst, for the city. We have various PIOs. We have one in the police department, one in the fire department, but we've never really had a city public information officer, nor have we had a social media policy. And I think the timing is good for us to talk about this. Clearly, what is being proposed this evening is really to go for our employees and their personnel handbook. But I think it's important for the council to also acknowledge that this media policy should be given to all volunteers and members of the committees, so they're aware of what our city policies are. And as a volunteer, you are a public official and you represent us in certain ways. And so I would hope that when we consider adopting that resolution this evening, that the council will consider also acknowledging that. So with that, Colin, would you like to answer any questions or explain an overview of the policy?
Sure. Just a brief overview, kind of the 30,000 foot view, as they love to say here. This really just puts everything on paper, puts everything in line so that people are aware of what's expected of them in this role, whether it's staff, elected officials, volunteers, just knowing that expectation, and it just puts it into a formal process for this.
So as was mentioned, this is going to become part of the personnel handbook,
Yes.
along with, like I say, the board, committee, commission members will also.
Yeah, how it's written right now is for the council to resolve to this for the city employees. But I think, you know, given recent culture and media comments that are made, that it's a good time for us as a new council to consider whether or not you would also like to formalize this for the elected officials on how your protocols are with social media, and also to all of our volunteers on all of our committees. I think that's a good time for us to have that conversation.
And in creating this policy, I referenced League of Oregon City policies and suggestions, our own staff handbook and policies, and local other cities like West Lynn, Milwaukee, Lake Oswego. I looked at what they were doing and tried to formulate something that matched and was comprehensive, just like they did. So
our intent is to be positive and move forward. That's really what the employees are focused on. And we have a new website coming out. We started our Facebook page. We're doing Twitter. We're looking for new ways to get out good information on what the city is doing. And so for us, the timing on having these protocols into place is optimum.
The Resolution 1116 on the copy we got, and the one in the book notes draft on it. Is that a reason for that?
I placed the incorrect resolution numbers, and was that it? Or just the corrected copy is in the pink. The pink. That's correct.
Salmon.
Even though it says draft, or salmon, excuse me.
It's not pink.
So before the meeting, Councilor Reisner brought up a point in regards to what was in your packet. And there was information. So if you're looking in your packet on page 9-7, last paragraph, L, M, N, and O, those really are not related to what will not be listed on the site. And so what we did was we took L, M, N, O and we put them under city procedures.
And guidelines.
And guidelines. Right. So we moved the placement of where those last items are, and that's what triggered this color copy change.
And I'm really appreciative of Councilor Reisner for catching that. So, thank you.
All right. Any questions? Further questions?
I'll move that we adopt the City of Gladstone Social Media Policy Resolution number 1116.
Motion was made by Councilor Reisner and seconded by Councilor Neese. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the next item on our agenda is discussion of the City Council liaison appointments for the city committees, boards, and commissions. Since we've had some changes up here, there's some vacancies, and I wasn't sure if we just wanted to backfill those vacancies right now and then relook at it at the end of the year to make, appointments for the next year. Or do we want to relook at the whole thing and make some decisions next month?
Mayor Stemple, I would like for us to fill with the new counselors that's on and just keep it as is and then move forward the next year.
Okay, backfill the vacancies. How do you guys feel about that? Is that all right? That's probably the simplest way to do it.
Yep.
Okay, so then we need a reserve liaison for City Hall, and since Matt and Michael are here, between the two of you, who wants that one?
Could you just explain, when you say City Hall, does this refer to the City Hall building project, to a relationship to city staff?
Staff, yeah.
City staff.
Yep. Do we want to do rock, paper, scissors? Because we can do that.
We can get a bowl out.
We don't have to. Michael, if you have no objections, or are you interested?
I think that's one I could
You'd like?
be interested in.
All right, so Michael. All right, next one coming down is the Parks and Rec. We have, we need a reserve liaison for that one. You want that, Matt?
Sure.
Okay, that's Matt.
Fine. 2 for 2 so far.
Woo. Traffic safety, our TSP and CTAC is vacant, primary liaison.
What is CTAC?
Clackamas Transportation Advisory Committee, and they only have meetings, I think, quarterly. It isn't very often, and
right.
Yeah, it's really not a big commitment. Unless we want money, then it's a big commitment. So
I recommend Michael Mills for that one.
Want to do that, Michael?
Okay, I was going to ask Councilor Mercero, since you're listed as the reserve liaison, would you prefer to be the primary liaison, or would you prefer that I?
No, you're doing fine.
All right, so Michael's the man. Next is Public Works. We need a reserve liaison for Public Works in general, and then we broke it down into the pieces, which is sewer and storm, water, and development. So we can either pick you guys individually for those, or just do...
Michael leaned back in his chair, so I'm assuming that means...
That's you? Okay, so Matt, you are Public Works. And then we'll just lump all of the Public Works together since the master plans are just about done.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be as onerous as it was. And then Planning Commission, we need a primary liaison.
Mayor, can we, on the water infrastructure, Matt, were you taking that as well?
I think we're taking both, both, because it was a reserve liaison position. And I'm comfortable with both.
Okay.
Yeah, that's your
Oh, that's
forte, so
primary,
that's
sorry.
perfect.
And that development liaison
So,
committee.
yeah, you're just public, where it says vacant, that's Matt.
Okay.
Matt.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So, Planning Commission. Since, do you want to do that?
No,
Michael, do you want to do Planning Commission?
Well, I know there's been in the past some disagreement over the role that the council liaison plays in the Planning Commission, particularly with regard to quasi-judicial rulings.
Yeah, I think we need to...
And I'm willing to, to examine and assume a different role than my predecessor did in that regard. But I do have a strong interest in the role of the Planning Commission in being the body responsible for amending and updating city code and the comprehensive plan, and so I'd be especially interested in that part of the job.
Perfect. Michael, Planning Commission.
All right.
That's you.
I remember in the interviews, that was the thing you mentioned first when you got that question, Matt, so I thought I was going to have to arm wrestle.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm the nuts and bolts guy.
All right, so did we get all that? I have it written down here, so I'll make sure that you guys get it.
Great, thanks.
All right. Well, so that was easy. Next thing is that we need to recess to the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion was made by Councilor McMahon, seconded by Councilor Reisner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We're recessing at 7:45 p.m. And then we are reconvening as an urban renewal agency for a minor plan amendment to the urban renewal plan. staff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. What you have before you is a housekeeping item. As you can tell, we received notice from the county that there was a lot description that was not accurately done, and it did not get caught when we did our last amendment. So basically what happened, and this was back in 1996, the Mormon Church and Health Resources, which is AKA Mountain Park Health Care Facilities, applied for and received a lot line adjustment between their two properties from the city of Gladstone. But the lot line was not drawn correctly on the map, so the county assessor's office actually caught it. We had Elaine Howard prepare an urban renewal amendment, so really it's just to line up the legal description with the property lines. So I would ask that you approve the resolution UR 62 approving the minor amendment.
So I was just curious if someone went out with a tape measure and triple checked. Just kidding.
No, we didn't.
Anybody have any questions? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution UR 62, a resolution approving the 23rd Amendment to the Gladstone Urban Renewal Plan.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Councilor Milch and seconded by Councilor Neese and Councilor Tracy. Any further discussion?
I guess a quick question. So why are we amending the urban renewal plan when all we are doing is changing lot lines, essentially? Is that not?
It's really just making sure the legal description of the entire area is correct, and
okay.
the plan has to have that contained in it.
Okay,
so, yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions?
And the census.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. So would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency meeting?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the urban renewal meeting.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilor Neese, seconded by Councilor Tracy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We are adjourning the Urban Renewal Agency meeting at 7:48 p.m. We're going to reconvene to the regular council meeting. Do we have any business carried forward?
Yes, we do, Mayor. I have a few things that I would like to go over with the council this evening. First of all, I made you all aware that the fire department applied for a grant through the Department of Homeland Security, and it's a SAFER grant that stands for Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. Chief O'Connor was notified last week that we received funding for 3 full-time positions in the amount of $481,323. Therefore, when we have our meeting next week on August 15th for the Transportation System Plan, I've asked you to please come in at 5:45 p.m. and the chief will present the agenda item for council action so we can accept the grant. And then on the 15th, we will have our Transportation System Plan meeting at 6:30. And we will also highlight our new website that's being launched that day. I want to let you know that I'm glad, Matt, that you are assigned to Public Works now because Public Works Director Jim Wynot and I will be scheduling one-on-one meetings with the councilors again to talk to you about stormwater, water, sewer, and specifically when it comes to West, Oak Lodge, and North Clackamas County Water Commission. I briefed you all in my weekly report that you are going to have some very tough policy decisions to make in September regarding our water and sewer rates. And what we're finding for the past couple of years is that when the other entities raised their rates, Gladstone did not raise theirs as a pass-through, and so we have been subsidizing those rates. So what we want to do is schedule meetings with you probably next week to talk about the decisions that we're going to ask for you to consider in September, and we want to also make sure that you have all the information you need to make those good policy decisions. have stormwater flyers for you to take with you. There's 10 copies here for each of you, because what we did was we put together frequently asked questions and answers. We know we vetted this fee process thoroughly, but as you know, once it gets on your utility bill, you get a lot of questions from citizens, and we want to make sure that you have the proper information. So we will be contacting you next week. The town hall meeting has been scheduled for Wednesday, October 18th. And that's a Wednesday, not a Thursday. And we will have it at the Gladstone High School auditorium. And we are working on a agenda for that evening, and we will let you know within the next couple of weeks of what you can prepare for. And then I just wanted to briefly let you know that I have a meeting with a communications specialist regarding positive messaging for the city as we continue to move forward in a positive manner. I will get a proposal from Prospect PDX this week, and I will let you guys know what that looks like, and we can consider if we want to engage in that type of social media outreach. The other desire that I heard from all of you is that you have expressed interest in moving forward with your strategic retreat planning that you started with LB Day a few months ago. And so what I'm going to be doing is meeting with Natalie and LB Day to talk about putting together a one-day retreat before October, so that we have time as a city council and myself to work with how are we going to improve our communications as a group, and how do we learn to make good decisions, respect each other, and move forward. So I will let you know when we have a date secured for that. And then I just want to say, in regards to positive messaging, I can't tolerate inappropriate or false information that's made by citizens to the media, especially regarding our city staff. And recently there was an op-ed piece in the local paper regarding the city's hiring processes. And we are very fortunate to have a highly professional and competent fire chief that I'm very proud of. And I would like to have him come up and talk to you a little bit about the very comprehensive hiring process that he just went through to hire our two new captains. So I will ask Chief O'Connor to please come up.
Mayor Stemple, Council, thank you. Jackie's going to be handing out a memo. I'm normally not in the habit of just reading to you, but I would like to read this into the record, and then I'll be happy to take any questions. The subject of the memo is Gladstone Fire hiring practices. There have been some unfortunate comments made recently in local print media and on social media regarding hiring practices at the City of Gladstone Fire Department. Though I have no intention of responding to such comments in those forums, I feel it is important for the City Council to have a brief review of some facts regarding this topic. First, the temporary day officer position. Under an ongoing pilot program, Gladstone Fire went live on January 9th, 2017 with a temporary 40-hour day shift officer position to ensure operational readiness and a quick first unit response during the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The temporary position was created due to injury to one of our full-time chief officers. That injured chief was just cleared for full duty on July 27th. The cost of this position has been absorbed in the existing department budget, and we should be receiving some offsetting revenue from our workers' comp provider since the injured chief was assigned light duty work while he recuperated. Due to the above-mentioned injury and the resignations of multiple highly active members of Gladstone Fire for career opportunities that started last January, I proposed the following to City Administrator Eric Swanson in a staff report on January 3rd, 2017. Quote, hire a temporary daytime fire officer to respond to emergency calls during the Monday through Friday work week. This individual should be a Gladstone Fire Department company officer or acting company officer qualified and will coordinate single company responses and day shift and night duty staffing. The day officer will also serve as an assistant training officer and will supervise other projects and personnel as assigned." Unquote. The position was announced to the 6 Gladstone fire personnel that had the proper qualifications, with a potential start date of January 9th, 2017. 2 of the 6 were highly interested in the position, and ultimately Lieutenant Kirk Stemple was the only qualified person that could adjust his schedule to fill this temporary role. The City of Gladstone was fortunate that a qualified internal candidate was available on such short notice to fill the position and help address the identified needs of the fire department. This position still exists due to operational necessity, is shared by multiple members of the department, and will sunset when the full-time captains are hired. Now on to the full-time fire captain positions. The City of Gladstone budgeted for 2 full-time fire captain positions in the 2017-19 biennial budget. In order to fill these positions with the most qualified candidates, Gladstone Fire advertised on a regional basis. I have attached the actual job announcement. The selection process was rigorous and involved several highly qualified evaluators from outside the City of Gladstone. In fact, 76% of a candidate's final overall score was determined by the input of external evaluators. And the process was designed in such a way that as fire chief I had no role in candidate scoring. Page 2. The City of Gladstone received 15 applications for the fire captain positions, 6 of which were from internal candidates. Out of the 15, based on application scoring done by an external evaluator, 4 candidates advanced to a comprehensive assessment center, including 2 internal candidates. The assessment center was held on June 27th at the Concordia University Center for Emergency Solutions in Portland, with all scores tabulated and posted the following day. I met with the top 3 candidates on June 28th and 29th, then left on vacation for 2 weeks to think about my hiring decision. Upon my return and with authorization from Acting City Administrator Betts, I issued conditional offers of employment to applicants Ty Vroman and Kirk Stemple on July 17th. And we hope to have these gentlemen on board as full-time captains no later than October 1st, if not sooner. So some final thoughts. The only time I have ever felt pressured by an elected official regarding a personnel decision was when a former counselor aggressively suggested that I should terminate the temporary day officer pilot program because of the perception that I was engaging in nepotism. I clarified with the counselor that following his suggestion would cause me to purposefully reduce the operational capabilities of Gladstone Fire Department and our ability to deliver service to our citizens, and I had no intention of doing so unless directed by the city administrator. As far as the fire captain positions go, the 2 candidates that received conditional job offers went through an incredibly difficult hiring process that saw them assessed by a myriad of internal and external evaluators. Any claim these 2 gentlemen received job offers based on anything but merit is baseless and misinformed. It is the fire chief's job to ensure the best possible fire, rescue, and emergency medical response services to the citizens of Gladstone within existing fiscal and personnel constraints, and every personnel decision I have made to date and will make in the future is viewed through this lens. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your explanation, Chief.
You're welcome.
I believe you're doing a super job.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay.
And as I noted in an email that I sent to you and to Acting City Administrator, which I'll hold off from sending anywhere else due to our desire to be more discreet, and I may have been above board, but I think I was right on target when I said I have nothing but the highest respect for you and for Jackie, and as far as how the whole process has gone. And yeah, the process was super above board. I'm glad that I did not have to go through that 17 years ago. I'd probably be still selling filters and hydraulic hose and fittings. So the process was very thorough from what I've seen, and to be commended. So thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. I appreciate the fact that you kind of had the a little distance through the process, just so that it wasn't just appearance, that it was actual. So that I see it all the time in police departments when I've was in law enforcement, where they brought in outside evaluators, fresh eyes, and so thank you. Thanks. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Chief, can I ask a quick question? So these two gentlemen, how long have they served with the fire department? They've been here for a while, is that correct?
Mr. Stemple, I think 12 years now.
Okay.
Somebody up there may know better than I.
Sure.
And then the other gentleman is an outside applicant. Mr.
Oh, okay.
Broman, yeah.
Great. Yeah. I'm going to just say that one of the things that struck me when I first moved to this community was both the police department and the fire department. And one of the things I find very comforting about this community, and haven't spoken about it, but I'm a little bit hesitant to see things move all the way down north, but I think that that's okay. Police presence in the middle of town I think is great. But one of the things I will say is that it strikes me that there's a certain comfort in both of these departments and what they bring to this community. And folks talk about the departments, and I can be anywhere in the city of Gladstone and the fire department comes up and the police department comes up. And although I know there are probably some folks who are on the street and around that may not speak highly of either of the departments, they're not the folks I'm talking to. I think the majority of the folks that I talk to and interact with speak very highly. And I think that both of these departments are commendable. I think the folks that you hire through such an arduous process are commendable. And I have a little experience with folks speaking of certain people's qualifications without really knowing who the folks are, and I think that you've made good choices, and I'm definitely right behind you and backing you on those choices, and appreciate both of these departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
And I'm very sorry that you were approached and told to do something that is unethical and immoral in my eyes, and thank you for sticking with it, and I promise you that with us sitting here, that will not happen on our watch at all. To any of the department heads, that was totally uncalled for. I am just disgusted with that behavior. But thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, any more business carried forward?
Nothing further, thank you.
Now, actually, I was going to bring up our meeting that we had last week.
Oh, sure.
Here,
Yeah.
I thought that was
We can do that, yeah.
appropriate. So back at our last meeting, we discussed our relationship with our contract attorney, and Councilor Neese, Ms. Betts, and I met with Mr. Doofman last week, and it was I'll say a very, very frank meeting. And yeah, so we both discussed, we all discussed both concerns and positive aspects. The current arrangement has gone back several decades, probably would be safe to say. And Mr. Doofman, as you mentioned, that maybe an RFP would be a good thing to take a look at how things are done. However, we don't think it would be the right time to do that. As you saw here just in the last half hour or so, we're taking on a couple big projects, and going out and looking for a new attorney in the middle of that isn't, in my opinion, isn't a wise thing to do. So my suggestion is to wait till maybe after the first of the year, or maybe even a little bit longer. It's fluid, to readdress this. I think, though, I would like to, something that Councilor Neese and I talked about is maybe we should have more of these conversations in the future, not necessarily just between involving myself and Councilor Neese, maybe some of the other councilors. I know, like I said, Mr. Doofman and I, we've had lunch a few times over the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, even goes back when I was chairman of the planning commission, just to, get away from here and kind of get to know each other. I mean, as you all know, when you get to know each other a little bit, it makes I think makes the decisions that we make clearer, and so that's something that I would like to recommend we do. I don't know if I said that very clear though.
We opened.
What's that?
Can I add to it?
Oh, please.
We opened up more dialogue and had more one-on-one conversations with the attorney, and I think that really has helped us. It gives us an idea of what he's looking at and where we are as well, and also, what the cost is of having an attorney, how we can deviate a little bit, and is it important, which meetings for him to be to and not be to, and Jackie will be working very closely with him. But it gave us a better understanding of David, and I have to say it was a great conversation, and I think we walked away there feeling really good about the communication and how we can change things and how we can make it better for the future.
Okay. And with that, I was going to ask if we might direct, I say we, the 7 of us, direct staff to maybe come back with a proposal for us to look at, in the fact that is it really necessary to have our attorney here at every meeting? I did some research in our charter and municipal code, in that they're not required to be here at city council meetings. However, one thing that was discovered several years ago is they are required to attend planning commission meetings. So I guess you guys are more important than we are in that regard. So I'd like to see if maybe we could get
They just make more trouble, that's what it is.
something back, with to authorize staff to change the municipal code.
Yeah,
for
we
that.
can do that at a later.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I understand.
You guys have way too much on your plate right now. Is that something that we can put up? I mean, if you come back to us by November.
Yeah, and I think that David and I have a very good relationship, and as we move forward talking about, do we need him here for this meeting, yes or no, our discretion is getting very good at that, but absolutely, yes.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, any other business carried forward? All right, next is business from the audience, and I think we do have a yellow card.
Mindy Garlington.
Oh, we even have our name up there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Mindy Garlington, 7,000 Debbie Court. So now that you guys have done all this for that building down the hall, and Michael brought up, Mr. Milch, I'm sorry, brought up the fact that, do we have to stick with this, being more specific about this property? Okay. Don't leave this hanging.
No.
In less than 2 years, some of you may not be here, and then we're all going to get we may get another council that decides to sell all this property out from under us. So I think now that we have a new address for the police station and we have a new address for City Hall, the library deserves this address, and it should be in writing before any of you go anywhere, because that's the only guarantee we have. And quite frankly, I understand that our police department needs to be updated, and I understand that this building needs to be updated and all of that. But this community has waited more than 15 years for a decent library. And we all get we're going to wait 2 more years. We're here to be patient. But I think within the next 60 days, the people in this community would like to see that library have this address and have that formalized, and not get, sidelined not to have it. I'm pretty adamant in this one.
Yep.
And I'll be back, quite frankly, over and over if we can't seem to find a permanent address, because that's what we want.
Stay tuned.
Thank you, dear.
Stay tuned. Shortly, stay tuned.
Since
we all want the same thing.
Simple, since she brought...
Yeah, you will get it in writing.
Mayor Simple, since she just made that statement, the ladies that stood up and have sweatshirts, I'm going to encourage you to buy them, and they're only $20, and they're 10, and they are absolutely wonderful. So purchase one before you leave here tonight. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no, library is definitely high on the priority list, believe me, so just stay tuned.
And I want to make one more response. You don't have to worry about the city selling this property out from under the citizens, because the resolution that was passed to save Gladstone Nature Park protects all property which is zoned in such a way where a park is a permittable use. And that includes virtually every piece of property up and down Portland Avenue that are all C1 zone. So the city cannot sell this land without the approval of the citizens.
There you go.
And not that we would ever want to,
no.
Unless there were an opportunity to make a trade for a better property on Portland Avenue.
Don't even go down that road.
Don't
even go down that road.
That we could do.
All right. Okay, business from the council. I think staff wanted to bring something up.
I wanted to just let you know that there is a vacant spot on the Planning Commission and Audit Committee. Dennis McCarty has resigned, and so what we're proposing is that we're going to open the application period until August 22nd. But next week, on the 15th, the Planning Commission and the City Council will be selecting 2 people from each group to be part of a committee. Randy Roulette, the chairperson for Planning Commission, would like to do that process. He liked it very well, and so next week we will work on doing that. Then the process would be after the 22nd that committee does interviews and brings back a recommendation at the September 12th council meeting. The audit committee and the traffic safety opening, Kurt Stemple has resigned because he's going to be a full-time city employee. We will get those vacancies posted, and closing date of August 22nd.
Just because you're resigning doesn't mean that you aren't going to be expected to come to the meetings and participate. Sorry, Dennis.
I'll be here.
Sorry.
Wouldn't know what to do without.
Yeah, you don't get a free pass. You don't. Okay, business from the council. Michael.
I had a question. Ms. Betts, you brought up the issue of the town hall meeting. 2 years ago, we had a town hall which was led primarily by city councilors and mayor giving reports to the community. Last year, which happened to be an election year, it was primarily the city staff who did the speaking, and the councilors stay out of it. I just wonder if you have plans for the direction we'll go, and just to let you know, I'd be happy to be a part of that process and making some of those decisions.
That's great, and in fact, I'll talk to you about a meeting that Colin Black, myself, and the mayor are having, and I think that you will find that it's going to be engaging, fun, and interactive at the auditorium, and we would welcome that input from you, yes.
Great. I think that's been one of the best things this city has done, particularly last year. Got a lot of positive feedback.
Yes.
So, thank you. That's really all I have.
Okay.
Just real quickly, the community festival this weekend was wonderful, and really thank everybody for participating and helping. And I just want to share something that I learned that Rotary has really done a fabulous job, and it's called the Peace Pole. And I don't think really everybody quite got it or understood what it was about. Our children have made these poles, and they've made 7. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob.
6 they did through Kraxberger. One was sort of I want to say the marketed one that was put up, and that was the original one that was at the Children's Center.
And
some of them have all been designed by Kraxberger.
And they painted them, and they put sayings on them, and I mean, they did a fabulous job on them. And the kids were so talented, and the things that they wrote. And they've put them up all over town, and they're mounted, thanks to the Public Works and Rotary working together. And I just encourage all of you to look at them, take pictures, and note that our children have made those. And one young man this weekend took his father and showed it to his dad, and he was very proud that he had done one part of it, and he made his dad look at it, and his dad was and it brings emotions because the kids are so excited about it, and just to get that recognition, and the father was praising him how great it was, and so I hope all of you will take the time to look. They're absolutely gorgeous, and these kids put a lot of time and energy into them. Thank you.
Right
Thank
now,
you.
there are 3 senior center at the park that was dedicated. We're putting a couple more in the park and then at the other schools too. So, and yeah, I watched that project.
Maybe we could get something in our newspaper about it too, in our community bulletin.
Great.
Already jotted it
Councilor
down.
Tracy?
Thank you.
It's been a week and a half, couple weeks of drinking, not from a fire hose, but from a waterfall. And I appreciate everybody's help and assistance, especially with staff. It's been a very positive experience thus far. I've had some great interactions with at the Gladstone Community Festival, working with some other folks on some other projects, and also wanted to take the opportunity to commend staff about going into this direction with the design bid build. I've managed a number of projects, CMGC projects and some others, and I think this is going to add a lot of value to what we actually get. So that's fantastic. Still ramping up on stuff. Appreciate your patience. Keep going forward. I'm a very forward-looking, try to be positive as much as possible person. So again, I commend staff for wanting to go in that direction as well. And open door constantly. There's lots of folks who have my phone number right now, and they're using it. So, fortunately, I have a vehicle with a great hands-free system, and I am going back and forth between Northwest Portland and Oregon City quite a bit. It's been a great experience. So I really appreciate it, and just want to keep going and keep being proud to represent you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Eisner?
So, I also, commend the Rotary with the participation. I mean, the show they put on was awesome. Participation was just great. And
thank you and Linda for the chili cook-off.
so, well,
No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you for the. Thank you for the lead-in, because I was going to maybe challenge some other departments in the city. So we had 2. Well, I'm going to say civilians that actually won the chili cook-off, and the fire department then came in after them with the mayor right on the heels of the fire department, and I'm going to throw my Brayland beans into the mix next year, and
And we need the police department there next year.
well, that's what I'm thinking too. Yeah, and maybe
We'll challenge them.
Public Works can get maybe a 55-gallon drum beans going out, stirring up. Now, sorry, that was suggested, but it's not allowed. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
I think actually one of the winners, speaking of speaking, she did use some Walla Walla sweets. So just a hint.
Yeah. Well.
So thank you, for the great turnout. And speaking of parks and so on, I've had some members of the Parks Department ask, and I had asked Ms. Betts about some monies that was given to the city because in regards to the Lake Oswego Tiger project, and so I was asked if I might be able to get a follow-up, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to give you a heads up on this. I forgot, and so I'm
No,
bad.
and we'd be happy to follow up with you. Public Works Director Jim Wynot and I met with engineer in Lake Oswego recently, who provided us receipts of the funds that came in for that project several years ago. So we would be happy to sit down and go over that with you if we can schedule some time to do that. Yeah.
Be great. Good. Thank you. I had an interesting morning in court today as an observer, not as a participant, and our awesome bailiff was in training, and he sure got trained. Ended up having a couple of different people had to be relocated to court, or not from court, but to the jail. So the PD is right on things as usual, and attended the coffee with a counselor. Because of my work schedule, I'm only able to attend maybe one or two of the morning sessions. And transparency was a big theme through the meeting, and also some talk was about, with the revitalization, Portland Avenue, and also what we decided earlier today. And I was going to ask also, when we were talking about getting together with LB Day, and I'm hoping that we might be able to incorporate what I'm calling Council 101 or City Council 101, not one-on-one, training, talking about, public records, confidentiality, kind of the basics, almost like a boot camp. Question did come up yesterday in regards to former Councilor Johnson removing some documents from City Hall after being recalled, and I don't know the particulars, so I was just wanting to to pass that on, that there was apparently there's a concern, and that we should make sure we're all knowing what we're can and can't do.
Yeah, and we can talk that piece, but the other in regards to ethics training, David has offered to do that as part of our one-day retreat. I got to get that scheduled first, and then we can talk to David about coming in for an hour at the beginning to do that. So yes, I agree. It's good for all of us to have it and to have it together. So yeah.
Okay.
So thank you, and I appreciate everybody that showed up yesterday, and look forward to the next one. Oh, which reminds me,
we can pass that
ladies and gentlemen,
we'll pass this.
The sign up for the rest of the year is
for coffee with a counselor.
Yeah, coffee with the counselor. So
okay,
if you get a chance, so you don't need to do.
Yeah, just sign up.
Not to put you on the spot right now, but just to kind of give you an idea.
No, but I apologize. I went by the dates that were posted in the city newsletter, which had it on the 2nd and 4th Mondays, which were the Mondays following the city council meetings this month, because
those are the real dates.
So these are the real ones.
Those are the real
I
dates.
sure hope so.
Okay.
If not, I messed up.
Okay, Councilor McMahon.
Thank you.
3 years in the waiting. We're moving forward on a public city hall, police station. Fantastic. I missed the festival due to work requirements, and to the Library Association, I apologize that I gave my fire engine away, but it's happily back in Madison, Indiana, where it belongs. So you won't get to use it anymore, but I understand you found a suitable ride for yourselves instead this year. Perfect. Fantastic. And then I'd like to do a shout out to Colin, who I saw the TV there on Tuesday when I was doing Meals on Wheels, and he was being interviewed, and then I think I saw it that night on KGW, and I just happened to be bored the next night and was watching the national news, and who did I see on the national news for about, I don't know, Colin, 2 seconds, 3 seconds? Five. Wow, very good. Colin was on the NBC national news for 5 seconds dealing with the cooling center at the senior center. So congratulations, and like I said, that's ice cream for everybody, so thank you.
Councilor Mercero.
As a part of the cultural festival, my car club, or I should say a car club that I belong to, Associated Fords 50s, put on the car show. It turned out pretty successful. There was 206 paid entries. Probably a dozen top that that didn't pay. We came up with, and don't take these numbers as being the gospel yet. I haven't, as the treasurer, I haven't gone over them totally yet. But we appears we received $5,503, of which at least 50% will in fact be donated to the Gladstone Center for Children and Families.
Awesome.
And then the Rotary Club, who pays for the entire car show event, okay, they will take the other half, and my understanding is some of that goes to the high school and some of the Clackamas community, and it goes in a few different spots.
It'll go back to the schools.
That basically goes back to the city and Clackamas College. So anyway, we had a bunch of help in that we had 96 sponsor awards. So we selected 96 cars. And the club has always taken on a practice, and we run several other car shows, that when our cars, when we judge the cruise-in, then we cannot put it on our cars. In this one, we're allowed to put in our cars, so we have the sponsors do the judging. And out of the 96 sponsors, theoretically, actually what happened is approximately 50-50 was done by the sponsors, and the other 50% was done by a bunch of volunteers that helped on the judging. Some of the judges were from the Cracksburger Robot Club, and several others that worked their rear ends off coming up with the scoring on all the awards. So anyway, it was a great event, and it was getting rather warm in the afternoon, but I survived. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, the only thing I have to say is that the chili cook-off was really fun, and the only reason that I walked away really happy was because the fire department didn't win. They came in second, so that makes me feel warm and fuzzy. But next year, we're going to go big or go home, so bring it on. Next year's going to be a lot better. All right, so anything else? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Councilor Neese and seconded by Councilors Tracy and Reisner. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 8:26 p.m.
Cool.
We're going to be adjourning to an executive session, so if y'all could
Oh, that's right.
clear out.